Hi, I'm Marguerite Manning, karmic astrologer and 12th house locksmith. If you've landed here on your YouTube search, I can only assume that, like me, you're fascinated by something or everything the 12th house in your birth chart represents. You should be. As the soul's exclusive doorway into this and every earthly existence, the 12th house does more than just document the universal conditions in which your spirit entered this physical world. It actually exposes the wake of karmic debris that followed you in. Think of it, the cosmic contrails of your unconscious past right there in the 12th house of your birth chart. Who knew? And that's the point. Listen to my 12th house interviews here on YouTube and learn more about the house of your karmic yesterday and what you can do yourself to unlock it today.
Hi, welcome back to the show. Marguerite Manning is my guest today. Marguerite is a professional astrologer and best-selling author. Her groundbreaking work in karmic astrology has helped thousands worldwide live up to their purpose in life by uncovering their soul's past in their birth chart. Her own personal journey of spiritual discovery began in 1994, when after developing a new astrological formula that validated the soul's history in the birth chart, she started using it to guide her clients to their earthly purpose in the present. With results that were just too remarkable to ignore, a brand new belief system became impossible to avoid, and her lifelong fascination for the stars above was immediately enhanced by a life-changing passion for the spirit within. Beginning with her first article in 1995 for The Mountain Astrologer, The 12th House, Your Karmic Closet, she's continued to write several best-selling books, with more on the way. Her book titles include Cosmic Karma, Sign Language, and Juno, Your Karmic Match Made in Heaven. With her attention now focused on teaching others how to unlock the most pivotal karmic secrets in their own birth chart, Marguerite released her first karmic astrology workbook course, Unlocking Your 12th House. Like her other releases, it received wide acclaim and excellent reviews. She also continues to write articles. And in addition to writing, Marguerite has a long-running, successful radio show, Therapy for the Soul, in which she discusses and shares many of these topics. Now on hiatus, it is soon to be aired again. Hi, everyone, and help me welcome Marguerite to the show. Marguerite, it is a true honor and thrill to have you here. Thank you.
Honor is all mine. I'm very, very happy to be here with you, Jan, and so thankful that you're giving me yet another venue to spread what was my passion, karmic astrology, finding the soul's past and the birth energies that you were born under. So thank you for that.
Well, I'm excited to share your knowledge and wisdom with our listeners. And I'd like to start by talking a little bit about your background and how you, well, I have so many questions about it. I already understand from your write-up on your website a little bit about your background, but what I'm most curious about is what first captured you about astrology. Was it the sky? Was it the stars? Was it the mystery? What captured your curiosity?
When we were young, growing up in New Jersey, my older brother was a very avid backyard astronomer, and my mom bought him a telescope, and we would be out there in the middle of the night looking for different planets, and it was all very, as the universe is, very mysterious, especially to young children, just a whole nother frontier learning about it. And then as I got through college and I started doing my own backyard astronomy myself, and the same brother when I had children, gave me a telescope for my backyard when my children were very young, and I started reading about, and I've always had an interest in astrology. And then I learned something very significant, that the ancient astronomers, the first men of science, to find these planets and to understand that it took Saturn 29 and a half years to go around the sun, without telescopes, by the way, to find Mercury on the horizon, which is almost impossible to do because it's so close to the horizon, to find that these men never separated the sciences of astrology and astronomy. They were one science to them, in the sense that astronomy was how all the things in the heavens moved as a whole, the cosmos, and astrology, how those movements up there affected society, affected us down here on planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, and I was raised a Catholic, I was raised religious, but then I realized back in that day, it was very scary for the Catholic Church to, the idea of maybe people running to their astronomer for advice. So they turned around at that point and they made the astrology part of it something that was blasphemous. The astronomy, okay, because that was science. But the astrology, that was voodoo, that was magic, that was not anything to be considered, that was against God itself, for only that reason. So it's only now, and I would say in the last 25 years, that astrology is starting to be recognized as a spiritual science, that it is, that it always was, and was separated for religious reasons eons ago. And then after moving to Virginia and raising my family in Northern Virginia, I took many a trek to the Edgar Cayce Institute. And here this man of great spirit and great talent always spoke of astrology in many of his readings. And one thing I loved about Edgar Cayce, and one of my first reviews for my first book, and the most prized one I have was from the Edgar Cayce Institute for Cosmic Karma, was he claimed that science and spirit, the universe works divinely when science and spirit are working together. So my feeling was, how could we cut off one part of this science, the soul,
Mm-hmm.
and just look to the physical aspects of astronomy, but not to the spiritual aspects, how it was affecting the soul's journey. What was the soul here to learn? And I started doing a lot of research. There was, my children were very little at the time, and one astronomer or astrologer that I was very taken with, she had a wonderful voice. She just passed very recently. Her name was Debbie Kempton Smith, and she had a chapter in her book, A Secret from a Stargazer's Notebook, on the 12th house and how this was the home of the soul. And yes, according to Edgar Cayce, the phenomenal thing, and I put this in my 12th house workbook, the phenomenal thing about Edgar Cayce was he claimed that the soul re-enters for every sojourn, every time it comes back to this planet, every return, it enters the physical realm 30 degrees above the eastern horizon. That's no coincidence. That's exactly the area of sky that's dedicated to the 12th house, the soul's home. So when I'm looking at the 12th house and exploring the 12th house, as Debbie Kempton said in the book, this is where to find your past life. I'm seeing the contrails of the soul's last life, how it came in and what it brought with it, the baggage, the debris, the things that the soul suppressed on a conscious level to deal with this new life. And as Edgar Cayce said, people said, well, why don't we remember our past lives? And his answer was, because we'd be overwhelmed by them and we wouldn't get on with the current. If you went into the 5th grade and realized how everybody hated you in the 4th or you got an F, how could you ever do anything worthwhile in the 5th? Correct? So while I say to people, what I try to bring them back to is but I also believe there's something to be said by suppressing so much of everything and not dealing with it on a conscious level. Sometimes the boogeymen in the closet are a whole lot less fearful than if we looked at them in the broad light of day. And many times when we're operating in this lifetime, we don't understand why we have certain fears, why we have certain guilt or certain shame. And we think, oh, that's because I deserve it in this lifetime, when I have found it actually, life-changing for my clients and my children and my family to find out that was yesterday. Now I get why I feel it. That was yesterday. Yesterday's gone and I can move forward. And one of the classic examples I used when I developed my formula, for finding the soul's past in a birth chart. And I look at the chart as your soul's contract with the universe. And the way I believe it to be is that when we were born into this incarnation, the influences we were born under are a direct reflection of the spiritual agenda our soul was born into, the one the soul chose. So you've heard many, many stories in this lifetime, great books like by Raymond Moody, Life After Life, where people die and they have these clinical deaths on the operating table. And most of them have one thing in common, where they see this great being of loving, warm, enveloping light, welcoming, not judgmental, and their life flashes before them. But then they're sent back because there's things for them to do. Those are the people that did not pass into the next life or did not pass forward. And I believe what we're seeing at that, I believe every time we die in this incarnation, that's exactly what we do. We go back to God. Go back to the universe. Go back to an omnipresent being of light and wonder that is responsible for all this, and that is a source of energy, light, and information to all of us. And instead of it being a judgmental thing, this universal mind says to us, for instance, okay, Jan, how do you think you did on this? And it shows you your last life without judgment. You say, well, yeah, I didn't do so well there. And then, well, don't worry, you have another shot at that. But where do you think you did well? And you go through all the things you did well, and you have very constructive, not criticism, but instruction on what you can do to further it. When it's all done, the universe, or the universal mind, or God says, okay, Jen, what do you want your next lesson to be? You say, okay, give me authority 101, or give me relationships 102. So then your soul is put aside, and when the universal clock moves into where Libra is on the 7th house, and the sun is in Libra in the 7th house, and the moon is squaring that, boom, your soul is dispatched to this planet for universal duty so that you can live up to those energies. And then we come in here and say, oh, why did I get that, Mother? Oh, God, why do I have it? And it's not because you deserve them. It's because it's almost like choosing a class, and then showing up and say, oh, my God, why did I pick math? This is so hard. Of course, it's hard, but it's not a punishment. And if you don't ace it and you don't do it and you don't even show up, nobody's going to be angry. I tell my children and my clients, you're just going to have to come back and do it again.
Exactly.
That's basically the gist of the punishment, because I don't believe in a punishing God or a punishing universe. I believe in repercussions. And I believe when we tell our children, don't judge, that's wrong. We need judgment. We need critical thinking. Don't judge each other, because we're all going to be in a certain place at one time. But if someone's doing something that you don't approve of, that pulling your judgment, that's not for me. You don't go over, you don't, crucify them or let them have it, but you turn around and say, that's not for me. I have to move this way. So I think our roles as human beings in this lifetime is keeping one foot in the spiritual realm and one foot in the physical, because we need our egos. We need to accomplish something down here on planet Earth, but we must do it in a way, as I believe that Edgar Cayce spoke of, the way that the body has worked for, but the soul can be proud.
Yeah.
And that's not hard to do. So you can be a millionaire. That's not terrible. But if you're giving a lot of your money to helping people get education, helping people thrive, doing other things to teach them how to fish or to teach them realize their dreams, then that's fine. But if you're stealing it from other people for your own, conceited, egotistical dreams, again, you're not going to be punished. You're just going to have to come back and be on what the other side of that feels like. Because what goes around comes around. It's not just a cute saying for me. That's the way these ancient astronomers believed this universe worked. That energy went out and came back, because that's how it stayed divine. It has nothing to do with punishment. It has to do with what gets put out comes back in a circular motion, because that's how the universe stays divine.
Yeah.
So with mind and finding, I became very interested in karmic astrology. And when I read Debbie Kempton's chapter on the soul's past, I got incredibly hypertense. My Scorpio moon focused on becoming almost obsessed about finding the soul's past in the birth chart. And I devised a couple of formulas for doing it. I used them on my own children. I had a really aha moment with one of my own daughters, who was only 7 at the time. And then finding something in her birth chart where I'd speak about it many times, and I've had her permission. She was very young at the time. She was probably only about 7, going through a very 2 or 3 day period where she was lying about things, taking things out of the kitchen, hiding them under her bed. And I was tired of her getting in trouble. And I remember she went to bed early one night with her sister in the room, and I just had it with the punishment. And I went in, I was looking at her chart, and then I went into her and I said, Whitney, it's been a really rough day for you. Mommy's not happy with you and all this nonsense. And the little eyes were looking at me through in the dark. And I said, I don't like you going to bed like this. I love you. I don't like you going to bed unhappy. And I said, and based on what I pulled out of her 12th house, I said, I saw that she, in her previous lifetime, she had lost her mother and pretty much left to be on the streets, very much in an Oliver Twist kind of way, where she had to steal for things and, kind of take care of herself. And I thought certain transits were triggering this thing to the 12th house. So I purposely spoke to that. And I said, that was yesterday, long before you came to Daddy and I. This might have been your life, but it's not now. Look around. You have a full refrigerator. You have toys downstairs. You have a sister in the next bed, a grandma in the next room. There's no need for this. And when you show the universe you're not happy with the things that you have, you're not grateful, then for some reason they get taken away so that somebody else can have them who will be grateful. She just looked up at me. She said, Okay, mommy, I get it. And that next day, the behavior changed. It changed. That's what changed me. When I saw that and think of a child so young, you're not throwing roadblocks in your ways. Oh, no, I don't know what you're talking about. She was just so totally accepting of what I was saying. And then years later, when she was in college, I said to her, do you remember that night? She goes, I look back on that and I don't know why, but what you were saying really rang true to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I often look back and think why I didn't think that was weird. It didn't feel weird. It felt right to me what you were saying.
She was young enough.
But the reason I know was the behavior change. And that's why I say my work is validating the soul. Saying you're not crazy for feeling this way, but it doesn't belong here.
So
You're not crazy. Go ahead.
Yeah. When you made that decision to go into, I want to get into details with your work. But before we get into your most recent book, which is the Workbook that is so powerful for individuals to do on their own with your guidance, that's the Cosmic Karma Workbook.
That's the 12th, unlocking your
12th house. Excuse me. I want to cover your earlier books also, because what I've found, and I read all your books thus far. I think you're working on a book right now that we want to talk about also. And there's a good reason your books are bestsellers. You write in such a clear way that for people, and I don't know if all of my listeners are adept at astrology or not, but regardless, anybody picking up your books would have an understanding of them from the way that you write. It's remarkable.
They're for beginners. I want them to bring people I want people to understand their birth chart as much as they would their birth certificate. And I think it's really important,
Oh, well, and I do have some understanding of astrology. And even if you have some understanding, it brings new levels because of how you connect the dots further. So it's powerful at all levels.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah. So how did you, and I was very, very fascinated to hear how you got interested in the karmic cosmic karma. I can't talk clearly, obviously, today, but the beginning of astrology and the signs. Did you feel that work was necessary in order to lay the foundation, or did you? That's why. Okay.
And the reason that was my first book is because I always say the story is in the stars. This birth chart is broken up into 3 particular areas. One is the date of your birth, one is the time of your birth, and the other, which is really, really significant. The first was the day, the year, and the time of your birth, and the place of your birth. So the astrologers use 3 different rulers, and they'll take that day, that time, and that place of birth, and what the sky looked like directly above you from that birthplace at that moment in time is a snapshot of your soul's contract with the universe. So if you were born in Australia at the same time as you were born in New York, the sky would look very different. So, and your agenda would be very different. But what I learned in karmic astrology is that we talk about sun signs and we talk about moon signs and it can be very, very confusing to people. But what I learned, and this is maybe getting into the weeds a little bit too much, but the precession of the equinox is when people talk about that the signs don't line up to our calendar anymore. And I have a whole chapter in that in my book, Sign Language. And the reason for that is they were never supposed to permanently line up. I truly believe that the moment that they started clocking the movement of the stars against the solstices, they did line up. So on March 21st, 0 degree of Aries was right there. The North Star was there. Now, so many years later, that's not the case anymore. And I'm convinced because the constellations reflect the past. The constellations, the stars, the signs reflect our past. So that when we come into this incarnation, the sun sign that we have is an indication, as I say in Cosmic Karma, of our last earned degree. So if you come into this incarnation with the sun in Leo, you're not wonderful at having people revolve around you for your heat, light, and warmth because it's just a coincidence. You ace that degree in your last lifetime. You know how to bring out the best in people. You know how to lead because you ace that. So now you have this burning, beautiful degree in Leo. In Gemini, you aced communications and connecting information with people and ideas. So that's why you came into this incarnation with the sun in Gemini. If you came into this incarnation with your sun in Cancer, the same thing. You have you are a card-carrying nurturer. You know how to be, like I said yesterday, you have superior abilities to be intimate, and so on and so on. But that's just the sun. What do all the other influences in the sign say? They tell me a little bit about your past, good, bad, and indifferent, the good, bad, and the ugly, the talents from your last life. Mars, for instance, what made you get up? What today makes you get up off the couch and jump into the game? Mars is the planet of action, energy, and desire. Well, what's your Mars sign? That's how you earned that ability in your last lifetime. Where's your Mars house? That's what you said you were going to do with it in this lifetime. So, but in order to understand what your agenda is now, you have to understand why you have those talents, why you have those fears, and why you have those guilts today, so that you can overcome them and step into that destiny that is yours. It is your destiny. But I think it's a whole lot easier. It was a whole lot easier for my daughter to understand that she was doing these things because of something that happened long ago, not because of something she was afraid of now. And that's why the behavior changed.
Yeah.
No. We just think, oh my God, I just feel this need to do this. And we don't know why. But then we can say I always say, we want the soul in the bus with us when we're taking this journey, but we don't want it driving.
Yeah.
We want it there giving us, navigating and getting us, past to tap into our psychic ability and to tap into its that universal mind, which is all that abundant knowledge, energy, and information that we have access to. But we certainly don't want to drive in the bus down here in the real world, because the soul, as I said, has a penchant for the rear view mirror. It loves living in the past. It loves anything familiar. And that's why we'll get caught up in a lot of old stuff with old people, old relationships, because they're familiar. And that's why we need judgment. The soul is not discriminatory. It goes immediately to what makes it feel comfortable. And life on this planet, growth will never occur in our comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. Boy, that's
what got me so excited about it. And then when I had such success with my own children, raising them and nurturing them, and all of my children were treated the same as far as what the rules were. But knowing how to communicate those rules to them depended on their Mercury sign. That's because your Mercury sign is how you learn to learn in your last lifetime. Or expecting to motivate them, I would look at their Mars sign. So that was really, really helpful, understanding where they came from in the past, where their fears were. And now my children are old enough, and they'll tease me, because with my moon in Scorpio, I don't care how old they are. When their plane lands, they're going to text me. When they get there, they're going to let me know. But a moon in Scorpio, obviously, I lost children in a previous life, and they get it. It's like, okay, we'll do it. We get it with that. But I mean, it makes your relationships understandable. If you don't feel as if you're resentful of people's idiosyncrasies, you say, I get it. So I can do that for them, and they can do that for you. But it also especially with yourself, you can ground yourself and say, I'm not falling into that fear, not in this lifetime, because those fears, that guilt, and that shame keep us from moving forward with what we said we wanted to do in this lifetime. It always does. That's the most paralyzing thing to us accomplishing our goals, is not in this lifetime our purpose. Everyone has a purpose because they chose it. And the most paralyzing thing to that purpose are fear, guilt, and shame of thinking we don't deserve it because of something that happened yesterday. And in fact, the irony is that we're here to move past that, to show the universe, to show God, to show the universal mind that we can do it this time. And then when we're met with those same feelings, not realizing that, we feed into them again. There we are, back on that treadmill. And the same people, the same situations, the same fears into our life to take root again. And that's just human nature, because it is a very physical planet. It's really interesting. Edgar Cayce believed that there's a different kind of life on all the planets in our solar system, and this Earth is a physical one. On Venus, is all about love. Neptune is all about spirituality. Mars is all about drive and ambition. Okay. Now we look with our physical being, we look on those things. We can't see the energy levels that he's talking about, right? But he says on every single one of them, like we might, according to him, and I truly have adopted many of his beliefs, is that we might not come back to this physical world for a couple of lifetimes, because we're evolving in other realms as well, spiritually, So, and he gave little indications of how you could tell the last existence you had. Your last physical existence was your 12th life. But the highest planet in your birth chart, like just say Jupiter was the highest planet. That's the planet of knowledge. So that's where you spent your last existence, in that realm. And then you're coming back to the physical world, boom, like cold water in your face. And then you have to get your land legs all over again. So there's really never a dull moment on this planet. But when you think about it, how would we ever evolve? We would be just like any animal, like a squirrel or a dog, if our soul wasn't constantly being challenged to advance mentally, spiritually, and physically, and somehow bring them all together so they work in unison. And that's so, we go off on one tangent on this planet, very egotistical. And I think the most successful people are the people that manage to bring their spiritual into their success.
Mm-hmm.
Or use their spirituality to obtain the success. And then, so it's the conscious, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual level, having them all work in unison, where you're consciously aware of what you're doing, you're not under, but you have a spiritual intention, and yet you want to succeed physically, to be an example and to help others. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think it takes more energy to try to fight that natural tide than to work with it. But
and giving away your riches that's not being spiritual.
No.
To me, that's being fearful. It's much more difficult to be a successful, rich person and do something you're proud of with that than just give it away.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean giving it away is not good,
Yeah. So your approach that you've been talking about both through your books and your workbook is one I referenced, but I'm so enamored with, actually, I think that's not too strong a word, is your teaching approach, because you do put the tools in the reader's hands. And I don't know if that's just a natural approach for you, or if that was a conscious decision. But and I did your workbook, as you know, because I worked with you afterwards. It makes the entire process, and I've done my chart before with professional astrologers, but then to go through a workbook and unlock the 12th house with the workbook took it to a new level of understanding. I thought,
almost a higher perspective, right? Like looking down at the whole thing fitting together, right?
Yeah.
That's what excited me about the work.
Yeah, it was really, really powerful. Was that something that you came to as you were developing your formulas? How did that decision come to you?
To teach it, you mean?
In that way? Yeah, through the workbook.
That's how it affected me when I came up with the formulas, even in my own chart.
Okay.
And everybody has something on the 12th house because it's a house of loss.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you're coming back into this life, to deal with that loss, to reclaim that loss, to take it on, to eliminate the fear that went with that loss, or the guilt, or the shame. So when I'm at the age now with my young children, probably about the age of 30, and I'm looking at these things that I did not like doing, I can understand now why, because of what I'm looking at in my last life, and why I'm fearful of them, why I don't like them. It's very empowering to turn around and say, there's a reason for that. I'm just wired that way. And I think we do that. We think, oh, I'm not good at this, because we have a fear in it. But if we were able to face that fear and see how it started, maybe something that we didn't have anything to do with.
Mm-hmm. Somebody
else was throwing negative energy our way or obstructing us on purpose. We can turn around and all of a sudden we get our fighting spirit and say, wait a minute, it's your purpose in this lifetime. 9 times out of 10 is the one that you were not allowed to fulfill in your last lifetime for one reason or another. And you're getting a chance now to do just that. And that's really empowering. And it's kind of heady when you start going down that path.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. Being a Gemini myself, a triple Gemini, I love teaching. And I was that way with my children and with anybody that I love the process of bringing information to people and having them understand it, and getting their feedback on it, and learning. I love all of that. So when I was developing a book for karmic astrology, I told Llewellyn I wanted it to be for beginners, because I didn't want anybody to think that if they didn't know anything about the birth chart, they couldn't learn anything about themselves. So with that, we had to teach them a little bit about the birth chart, but not so much that they're in the weeds and it's overwhelming to them, just enough to be able to pick up a birth chart and find the 12th house, look at the sign, and then read in the book what that means, and start to learn more about themselves. But every sign that's on the 12th house, and my formula is break up each sign in decans, degrees of 10. So every decan brings into shade, the sign means the same thing no matter what degree is on the 12th of that sign, but the decan it's in brings it into a different portion of that particular sign. So that's why the exact time of your birth is really important, so that I know exactly what was sitting on that 12th house at the moment of your birth from your birthplace. But every sign indicates the lost yesterday. So if you have Cancer on your 12th, as do you, in some way, shape, or form, there was lost family involved, a lost sense of belonging, a lost sense of clan, like this is who I am. With Leo, as I have on the 12th house, it's a lost sense of celebrity or power, where there was some kind of fall from grace that you couldn't deal with, and boom, you don't want to be out there anymore. You don't want that responsibility for other people. Okay, when there's something like Aquarius, your ingenious ideas or your avant-garde methods were used to hurt people in society, either stolen from you or you misguidedly handed them over to people you thought were using them, and now you've blocked that part of you that you feel rejected by society, and your friends actually or colleagues did you in that last lifetime. So you really very trepidatious about venturing into that area again, sharing your genius, your ideas, and you kind of like a bit of a loner because you don't want society judging you anymore. So every sign on the 12th, when it's one of the most popular signs on the 12th is Libra, and Libra is about lost love and lost relationships. Usually, depending on where Venus is, which rules Libra in the chart, it can either be a very indicative significant other. Usually it is. It's love. In the past lifetime, you were manipulated, abused by this person that you loved. To what degree depends on going through the workbook. But those people in this lifetime have learned to, can be very passive aggressive because they've learned to, or they've been improperly programmed to believe they have to sacrifice their power for peace. And as you and I were speaking about yesterday, the minute you start doing that, you don't get it either, and you deserve it either. Because someone who's supposed to be loving you is supposed to be absolutely giving you power just as much as they have. It's a mutual commitment, So these are the things and it's so interesting to say, that's why I'm attracting these people into my life now, because this is the toolbox I'm working with. I don't need this. These rules don't apply to me in this lifetime. This was how I survived yesterday, but I don't need this now. I actually came back to say, I'm going to have the kind of relationships where I'm respected. If you have Libra on the 12th, I'm going to have the kind of relationships where we're both exactly one whole part of a significant relationship. And that's what's really important about finding out what's on your 12th, where you came from, what you gave up, how you were, what your fears and your guilt and your shame were, but more importantly, what was the loss in that lifetime that left you feeling that you were less than now.
It's very validating.
It is, and that's why I call it validating the soul, validating the part of you that often gets overlooked in birth chart analysis, which is the soul. Because to me, that's when we go into a psychiatrist's office, and I'm a big proponent of psychological therapy of any kind, that's who these people are talking to. They're talking to the psyche. They're talking to, and I'm going back to a time that when we didn't exist on this planet, but how do we know that that's not the soul that they're actually talking to? The one that came into this lifetime with these fears and this guilt and the shame. And here's the interesting part. We always have the universe and its infinite wisdom and infinite, resources. When we choose a path, always has a way of putting things in our life this time to remind us of what we wanted to do. So people say, that's so similar to my life now. I said, because these are your universal nudges. Remember, you wanted to address this with your dad, or remember you didn't want to do that with the boss. And the universe has all the time in the world, so it lets you get away, and it lets you get away. And then all of a sudden, when we're in our 40s or 50s, we're getting this wow. We're saying, that's what I call the universal 2x4. I mean, we're running out of time. The universe saying, okay, I'm tapping my foot. Yeah, I've given you this opportunity, that opportunity. When do you want to get to this? Because the nudges are just going to keep getting bigger and bigger, because I'm at your service. I'm doing what you. And then I say to people, the minute we start living up to our contract, it's not as if, like I say, bells go off and you hear angels and you see beautiful images. It's all of a sudden things just start to seem like they're a little easier. You seem like you're moving with the flow of the universe rather than trying to always jam that round peg into the square hole. It seems like things start to work with you when you start to open up to the direction that you want to go, and you take on the heavy lifting, I should say, the stuff that's going to help you grow. And there have been many of them in my life, and they are difficult to do, but once you get by them, there is definitely growth. And you think, I'm so glad I did this. I would never be here in this particular opportunity if I didn't. And this is what the workbook, I hope, hopefully was helpful to you. And this is the feedback that I'm getting from it, because being able to explore your own path, then especially after the workbook and you've done the soul work summary and you have these pages, and one of the exercises is every single day for a week to read your answers that you gave on a soul level and face them and address them. And then if you want to do something afterward, another type of reading or get another book, you've got this foundation of knowing what the things are that you want to work on. And that's really, like you said, very, very liberating and very empowering.
Yeah, because I think what happens with the 12th house, and the 12th house isn't something that I had any awareness of at a deep level prior. And I think what happens is there's a lot of shoulds that are unspoken that come out with the 12th house. And in the study of it, that it's what you said about the shame and all of that is so deep and unconscious. It's like, oh, wait a minute. No, this doesn't belong to me. It's, as you said yesterday, a memory.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So anytime you want to talk about yours, talk about the 12th house workbook and looking at your chart, would you like to do that?
If you think it's relevant, or we could talk about what you're working on now. If you think there's some examples that would make it pertinent to the...
Well, just to give you an example, what you and I spoke about yesterday with your 12th house, with Cancer on your 12th house, I won't get into the degree or whatever. It was very clear from a soul perspective, not you, Jan, but your soul came into this incarnation feeling very isolated, in the sense that that's who you were in your last lifetime. Your family, you had no ties to family. I truly believe, and I mentioned this to you, I didn't do an in-depth, I'm just looking at your 12th house workbook, but your mother died in childbirth. I don't believe she was married to your father at the time, but I think it was a very big deal. I think he was a very rich man and a very big deal. And you were sent to a way to be raised in a convent, which is where you learned a great deal of spirituality, a great deal of how to, I don't think you were very taken with the punishing aspects of this religion and this, I want to say convent, nunnery, or monastery, or religious organization. But because you were so psychic and so talented, you learned how to connect with spirit at a very, very young age. And you kind of formed your own sense of what religion would be, and connecting to spirit. You called it talking to God, maybe your angels, but you were connecting to spirit. I truly believe you might have even been connecting to the mother you lost without being aware of it, thinking of her, that person as maybe your guardian angel or the Holy Mother or something, but you, because you were very little. But I also feel that you were abused in this place, and this is what turned you into a survivor. But as a result, this level of evolution that you were able to attain by not having brothers and sisters and growing up in that kind of environment. There's also, I believe, a stepsister that kept you there, knew full well that you were the legal heir to your father, but kept you there because they were threatened by your talent, by your beauty, and by your ability to connect on such a spiritual level, to connect, to draw people to you, to solve problems, to connect with people. And you might, again, the mother in this lifetime, the father in that lifetime, the sister. I always tell people, be very aware that these energies might be back, because they might have chosen to work things out this time too. But if they don't, and only you do, That's their issue. They just come back again and somebody else will be their teacher. But you are so higher minded. I know your soul wants to move beyond these things that held you back in your last lifetime. And I only found out after we had our session of what you actually do for a living. So you couldn't be more in the zone of what your soul wanted to do. And it couldn't have been an easy experience for you in this lifetime. Because I think I even said to you, did you feel that you had did you feel you had a soft place to fall? Did you feel a sense of belongingness? And another thing I say that people who have Cancer or Capricorn on the 12th, one of your more noble missions in this lifetime is to mother the people that you're not related to. So quite often, these people don't have families or children of their own because on some level, the soul knows they're going to be spread on a much more global level. And I actually see a child of yours from that life coming back to you in this lifetime, but I see coming back to you more as an adult, somebody that you mentor or you coach or you're coming into, and a very strong bond being tied between the two of you. But there is severe loss as a mother and as a child in that lifetime. And you made the most of it, and your soul evolved. And I think the most hurtful thing for you in that lifetime, which I hope that you can understand now, is your soul took it on then that there was something wrong with you. And I'm here to tell you that actually you were being put away because there was so much right about you. You were beautiful, you had the resources, and you were being put away to be taken out of the picture so other people could use your resources. Other people, I think I told you, I truly believe this father of yours, I'm not even sure if he was aware you were born, but he was in some kind of metal or steel industry, mining, something that was brand new at the time, and some kind of property, like to this, I would believe, looking at this chart, this thing still exists today, what he created then. And you were at the time the heir apparent, you were the firstborn. Whether or not you're illegitimate, you were the firstborn. And you had to be taken out. Now think of how your soul views that. A little child doesn't think, I'm taken out because I'm so valuable. What would you think would be the reason children would be thinking that they're being shoved away and hidden in a closet?
Yeah.
Because they're not valuable. So guess what? Here comes Jan into the next life, and only you can speak to this. You say, okay, I want to move beyond this. So you have to be brought into a life where right off the bat, you're made to feel like you don't have those family connections because you want to move beyond it. Mm-hmm. So I always say that to my children. I say, you chose your moon sign. Don't blame it on me. Teasing them for fooling. Because that's the thing. This is what they wanted to learn in this lifetime. So they got me. And they're going to learn it from me. So I always say that gives the mother a great right. Like I say, and I say it to my children all the time. You're going to end up on a shrink's couch. The first 2 years are going to be about me, and that's okay because you chose me. Right? But came to this family, and that's kind of empowering too, because it kind of takes the idea of very spiritually blaming anybody. Mm-hmm. They were your lessons. Mm-hmm. They were catalysts that made you move in certain directions to be who you are now. So it's not about blame. It's about how you evolve. And with Cancer on your 12th and the moon in Pisces in the 8th, you're an incredibly evolved soul, but you earned that from your last life. You went through fire. And in this life, the worst thing that could happen to you is for you to go through this life letting the people around you that had such power yesterday make you feel the same way now. Instead of turn around and say, oh yeah, watch my smoke. That's what they should be doing to you now. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Yeah,
okay.
It does.
So that alone is empowering to know that okay, not only can I do that, but I have a right. That's my right. Not only is that my right to do, that's my job. My job now. I told the universe I was going to move past this. But because we're all human, there's going to be something that does get in our cross somewhere in this life, makes us, and that will be our next 12th house, the next life, because we're constantly evolving. That's how we evolve. And it's like, every single classroom, every single year, you're in another grade. It doesn't mean that you weren't great in that grade. It just means that there's so much more to learn. Mm-hmm. And the experience,
It's interesting too, because I think of soul families and how we enter groups to learn lessons together. And it makes me want to see my dad in this lifetime. My parents are both gone now for quite a few years, but I'm curious to do my dad's chart. I don't even think I know his time of birth, but I would be curious because there are tie-ins from his lifetime here in terms of the business he had and the type of creative, forward-thinking man he was.
You know what's interesting? That's so smart. You know what's interesting about that? I had a great relationship with my father in this lifetime. He died when I was fairly young. I would say I was in my 20s, so he never saw my children. He died very young, at the age of 59.
I'm sorry.
But in my last lifetime, when I did my chart, I was working on a spirituality kind of thing that was, just say astrology, astronomy, that was considered blasphemy. And in this particular lifetime, my father was a diehard, and in this life, my father was very religious too, and wanted no part of it. And I got angry. In this lifetime, I took my children. I had 2 of them at the time. I took my children and I left. What's so interesting, I never think anything about that until I'm working on my chart years later about that particular aspect. And to this day, I can still grieve over my father. He was such a great person and so much fun. And he used to say to my mother, I'm not going to discipline him. He wasn't, even though he was a Marine, I'm not going to discipline him. You can do that. I don't want my children to hate him. I used to think, what a funny thing to say. He doesn't want his children to hate him. He's the father. So then I look back, and my big lament in this lifetime is that my father never got to see my children. Now, isn't that interesting? What goes around comes around. Here in an act of ego and anger, I take my children from my father in the previous life, saying, you're never going to see these children. And while it isn't punishment per se, because I had a great relationship with my father, it's that thing like shoulda, woulda, coulda. And that's what I think the universe is about. It's about energy has to come. You have to see it on the other side to know what it feels like.
Right.
So if you go by any philosopher or any savior, Jesus Christ, for instance, when he said, be good to others, not because you're going to offend me, because it's going to come back to you. Yeah. That's what I think these wise, learned men that we deify as religious men were trying to say. Yeah. Don't worship me and deify me. Be good to each other, because whatever you put out there, just like Edgar Sayce says, is going to one way or another. It has to, not because you're being punished, because that's the way this universe stays divine. So every time I think about that, I think, okay, I even though it was retrospect and that was my last life, I learned a valuable lesson in the sense that doing things like that in anger to hurt people, one day or another, I'm going to be on the receiving end of it. So if this isn't something I want to feel, mm-hmm. I'm not going to put it out there. But it's little things like that. If you go over your chart, you can see. And it's not as if the universe is being so mean to you. It's you're having to understand what you did. Mm-hmm. What you put out, you're just seeing it from the other side. Mm-hmm. And what better learning tool is that? Really?
I know. It's a gift. It's a real gift. Yeah. Oh, I could talk forever, but I want to hear, I know that you're working on a new book. It might be done by now. I'm not sure. But
I'm working on the 12th House Workbook. Has been received very well. And that's the one that's out there now on my website at MargueriteManning.com. The one I'm working on now is a workbook for Chiron, the asteroid Chiron.
Exciting.
Of Chiron in chart. There's a karmic significance of every influence in the heavens in our solar system in your chart. And I like the jumping off point for me is the 12th house. And the other books deal with the other, like the sun, the moon, what the karmic significance is. But knowing first where you came from helps you put your story together better. So the 12th house workbook is very, very rudimentary and basic, and it'll help people. It has 6 different keys for finding your soul's past in the birth chart that are very easy. And now that's what I want to do with Chiron, put together a workbook where there's a certain amount of keys where it's very simple to find out where the wound of yesterday, most impact occurred, but where it's unconscious, you're not even aware of it, and where once you heal it, that's where you have the ability to heal others in this lifetime.
Oh, so Chiron. It's such a huge, significant factor. So
it is.
When do you think we can expect that one?
I'm hoping to have that done in the next month or 2, because I'm also working on my website, changing my website up, and I've been working on another e-booklet. So typical Gemini, I have nine irons in the fire at one time, so I have to focus this summer. So hopefully that will happen, Jan.
I'll keep watching the website. We'll have links to everything, but yeah. Thank you. Now, are you doing another radio show or
therapy? When my website goes up, I wanted to go back on. I had a radio show back a few years called Therapy for the Soul.
Yeah.
And I would do it once a week. It was a podcast. It was on iTunes. I think it's now still on Blog Talk.
It is.
I want to go back to that where we took an element in the birth chart every night, talked about the karmic significance. And then we'd have people call in. The first half hour, talk about that. Second half hour, we had 1 or 2 callers to show how to apply it in your own chart. I would love to get back into that. I just have to do a really good job of scheduling my time so that I only have one literary thing I'm working on so that I can work on the podcast as well. So that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that will happen like September at the end of the summer when I get everything else cleared up. So.
Okay, that's excellent. I'll have the link to the archives right now on the show notes because it is still on Blog Talk Radio.
It is. It's on a couple of other places have picked it up, like Sketcher and
oh, good.
Stitcher, I'm sorry, and there's a few others. It was on iTunes, but I have been off iTunes so long. I think they took it off iTunes, but it is still on Blog Talk. It's on Stitcher, and it's on a couple of other different platforms too. I just can't remember which ones, but it's there. And my article was on Uranus. Your karmic genius was just in the May-June issue of Dell Horoscope, and Jupiter, your karmic jackpot, is going to be in Dell Horoscope's November-December issue.
Oh,
so wonderful. I've been doing my article writing as well. So those are really very helpful to find out what Jupiter means in your chart and the karmic significance of it and what it can tell you about karmically about your last life and how you can use it to get the best, in the way of your abundance and your knowledge in this lifetime. So that's an interesting article to read.
Okay,
and
super.
That will be out in November. Right.
November. Okay. We'll broadcast before that, but we can link to your website, which I would hope would have the link to that article on your website then, right?
Yes, and Dell Horoscope's website itself. I think it's the magazine is right there on there as well. And you can buy it from now, which is really great now. You can purchase Dell on Amazon. You can purchase the subscription on Amazon, which is great.
That
or
is good.
Individual issues and copies, so that's terrific. You can download them as an e-download, or you can actually purchase them in the mail and have it sent to your home. So it used to be where you had to be in the store, like at the train station or in the bookstores to find them. That's not the case anymore. And the editor over there, Ronnie Grisham, she's just a really wonderful gal, and she puts together a great magazine every single 2 months. Is a really good magazine coming out. It's just my favorite astrology magazine. So,
well, that's good endorsement. We will link to that as well.
Thank you.
Before we close, I have a couple of closing points and questions. What 3 things would you like listeners to know about cosmic karma?
Cosmic Karma, the book, or Therapy for the Soul, my work?
Anything, just in general, the concept, your work.
My first book is Cosmic Karma, and that does kind of encompass everything I do, finding karma in the cosmos. But Therapy for the Soul, the 3 things that I'd like everybody to know is that it is a validation. Validating the soul is the only way the human part of us, when the spiritual part of us is validated in this lifetime, the human part of us can go on and live the life of purpose that we wanted to live. We'd be surprised at how that not being validated, that soul being fearful or unhappy or not validated at all, can get in our way. That's how neurosis is started. That's how fears are started. Idiosyncrasies that drive us, habits that we're trying to protect ourselves from something that doesn't exist in this lifetime. So that's really, I have found it to be my work of using the birth chart as a therapeutic tool rather than just a predictive one. Has been so much more rewarding for me and for my clients, customers, and family. And that's what I love about karmic astrology. I can do, and I do transits where you predict things coming into the future, but it's almost as if that doesn't do any good if you don't, knowing where you're going doesn't do any good if you don't know where you came from. And that's so much more helpful to me to have both perspectives in that regard. So that's what I love about karmic astrology. I believe finding the soul's past in the birth chart is critical to us living up to our contract with the universe in this lifetime.
It's beautiful. Now, is there anything that that I haven't asked that you'd like to add?
Not at all. You've done a wonderful job, Jen. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to promote this workbook. It's been very well received. And I think the work that I do can be very intense. And sometimes, especially the larger karmic reads can be very pricey because a lot of work goes in before you even get a client on the phone. So I try all the time to have work information and learning available to my clients and followers at so many different price points. Mm-hmm. That's why the podcasts are free. The books on Amazon are all under $10, most of them. And this workbook is just a little bit higher than that, but it's another level of doing it just for yourself and getting kind of my voice over your shoulder in the pages, doing it just for you. And then of course there's sessions and webinars, but I like having a plethora of different opportunities to do this, to find your soul's past in the birth chart. So thank you for that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. So we'll say goodbye for now, and I'll say until next time.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.